Well, good morning on this beautiful spring day. Welcome to our March Plants, Pests, and Pathogens. I'm going to start us off with a few announcements. I'm Charlotte Glenn, the NC State Extension Master Gardener Program Manager. Then I am super excited to have Amy Bruzzichesi here, who is our um, Therapeutic Horticulture Program Manager with the Extension Gardener team. And she will be talking about from hobby to healing, understanding garden groups and therapeutic horticulture. Then we'll move into our BOLOs, which are be on the lookout. These are pest and plant diseases that are coming our way in the next month. Matt Bertone will share insect pest issues, and Mike Munster will talk about plant diseases. And we'll finish things up with Plant These for Pollinators feature, which is something new for this season, where each of our webinars I'll be featuring a great plant to have in your landscape for pollinators and a few more announcements. And last month, our plant these for pollinators was redbud. And I mentioned, it being February, it was a little bit early. They weren't blooming yet, but they should be blooming by our next Plants, Pests, and Pathogens. And lo and behold, at least at my house here in the central part of the state, over the last few weeks, they have really come out and come into bloom. So I hope you're seeing those and enjoying those as well. So a couple of announcements. A reminder went out late yesterday about our webinar for tomorrow. So we have a continuing education webinar tomorrow, Building a Better Monarch Butterfly Garden. We're really excited to welcome Dr. Dan Potter, who is emeritus professor with the University of Kentucky. He has done a lot of research into the types of plants, how you put them in the landscape, how you what everything you do around creating plantings for supporting monarch butterflies, and on a home landscape scale. So he's going to be talking about his research and what he's learned and recommendations for planting a better monarch butterfly garden so we can support um, these amazing pollinators, which, as we all know, have a lot of struggles that they're and challenges that they're facing. So this webinar is sponsored by the Extension Master Gardener Endowment. The registration information, including the Zoom link, is posted on the EMG intranet calendar. So you should be able to find that by going into the EMG intranet and to your calendar. And this will be recorded. So it'll be recorded and the recording will be posted under our continuing education section on the EMG, the North Carolina EMG intranet site. So you'll be able to find that and watch it later if you can't join us live. Also, tomorrow is NC State's Day of Giving. So, this is an annual event that gives people the opportunity to support the programs they love. We're very excited to have a special gift this year, an Extension Master Gardener Challenge gift. And we have a generous donor who has pledged $10,000 to our Extension Master Gardener endowment once we reach $5,000 in donations on Day of Giving. And those donations on Day of Giving will actually go to our Extension Master Gardener Program Fund. They'll be immediately available to use to support programming across the state, whereas our endowment um, builds up the principal and then it bears interest each year. So our endowment gifts is long-term support. Our Day of Giving gifts to the program fund are available immediately. So we're really excited about that and hope you'll be able to join us in supporting the Extension Master Gardener program tomorrow. And also encourage you, if you help manage the Facebook page in your county, your Extension Master Gardener Program Facebook page, please share our post from the North Carolina Extension Master Gardener Facebook page to let people know about our exciting challenge gift. And I do want to give a shout out and say thank you to the Extension Master Gardener volunteers in Durham County, as well as the Extension Master Gardener volunteers in Lee County, who is a group, both in both counties have already pledged a gift that'll be part of our Day of Giving event. So we really appreciate you doing that and appreciate your support. With that, I am happy to introduce our guest speaker for today, Amy Bruzzichesi. Amy joined the therapeutic where she joined the NC State Extension Master Gardener. I'm sorry, I'm getting it wrong. Amy joined the NC State Extension Gardener team last year as the Therapeutic Horticulture Program Manager. She's based in the Department of Horticultural Science at NC State. In this role, she co-leads the Therapeutic Horticulture Certificate Program in partnership with the North Carolina Botanic Garden and supports extension agents across North Carolina and beyond in other states across the United States, and even other people around the world who are interested in learning about therapeutic horticulture. Um, so she provides support for extension agents in integrating therapeutic horticulture into their programs. Amy is also a horticultural therapist and career social worker with extensive experience in elder care, medical social work, and nonprofit leadership. In addition to her work with Extension, Amy runs private practice using plant and garden based activities to help individuals navigate life's challenges. So, welcome, Amy. We're delighted to have you join us today. And I will stop my share so you can start yours,
All
and
right.
I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful introduction, and I appreciate that. It is an honor to speak with you all today. I am coming to you from Alamance County, so a special hello to the Alamance County Extension Master Gardener volunteers. Up until very recently, I was one of you, and my work at NC State has had me put that on pause, but Master Gardener is near and dear to my heart. So with that, I'm going to share my little slide presentation as long as it lets me. So give me just a second. Can everybody see that? Can anybody see that?
Yes, yep,
All
we
right,
see it.
wonderful. Perfect. All right. So today we are going to talk about therapeutic horticulture, of course, but more specifically, because most of you already know a little bit about therapeutic horticulture, we'll talk more about the difference between gardening groups and therapeutic horticulture groups, because they can look really similar, but they're not at all the same thing. So we'll talk about the differences, and if you have a therapeutic horticulture group or a garden group, how you can know the differences and how you can take it to the next level if you're interested in doing that. And we'll have time for questions at the end. So everybody here, I'm preaching to the choir, understands that there's just a huge benefit to connecting with plants. It provides stress reduction. It improves your mood. It gives you anywhere from gentle to absolutely exhausting physical activity, depending on which part of gardening you're doing. It provides, as we know from right here, social and community connections. We're all connected because of our shared interest in gardening. And one of the really important points that people don't always think of is when people are in a situation where they're receiving care, it gives them the ability to be a caregiver again, which is a role that they may not have when they're in a situation where they're having to be taken care of. So to just give them a plant or a small garden to take care of can be life-changing. So a gardening group, just as a general definition, it's a group of people who are working together in a shared space with a shared common interest in gardening or learning about gardening, or in plants or nature or fresh food or flowers, just any of the things that come with being outside and taking care of a garden, or indoors with houseplants. That counts too. There are lots of gardening groups that aren't able to get outside, especially all year long, so we can take it inside and still be a gardening group. Gardening groups can build community while members are sharing their plant knowledge and their tips and techniques and best practices. And as master gardeners, we have the ability to share what we know. And we're passionate about that because part of a master gardener program is sharing the knowledge that we know with the public. So gardening groups are a perfect way to do that. A lot of groups can host plant swaps or plant sales or garden tours, seed gathering and seed swaps. They may share or sell the flowers, food, seeds, cuttings, or plants from the garden to sustain the garden and to earn a little bit of money for the group, because sometimes, there's a need to, there's some expenses that have to be covered. So by getting some products out to the public, there's a way for people to be able to earn money and have the group be self-sustaining. And a gardening group's activities are pretty much what you would think of. Planning the garden, buying things that will go into the garden, either seeds or plant starts, doing the planting, of course, weeding, harvesting, all the maintenance that goes into taking care of a garden, and then doing the sort of back room part of learning about specific plants or gardening techniques, which are things that we can do during the season with hands-on or off season with lectures like this, where we're trying to up our skills so that we can learn from the challenges that we had and repeat the successes. So some of the goals or the focuses for a gardening group are, of course, enjoyment of gardening. That's the main focus. Learning and skill development. So you can take somebody from a beginner who just thinks they might have an interest in gardening or plants, all the way up to people who are experts and are excellent at gardening. Social connections and community building are a huge part of why you would have or why you would consider having a gardening group. There's a way to, gardening can be a very solitary activity. And for some of us, it's a sort of almost a meditation that we do on our own. But bringing lots of people together, or even a small group together, makes it a social focus and makes it a community. For some groups, the focus is on productivity. So if you're looking at a community garden who are trying to address things like food insecurity or want to create a small economy from that garden. So growing food or flowers, ornamentals, gathering seeds is the main focus of a group like that. Sustainability, it can be environmental sustainability, of course, but in this context, it's making sure that the garden doesn't become an expense or a burden for an organization that might be hosting them in their space. So if you're thinking of maybe a community center who has donated the use of their garden space, the group would like to make sure that they are not costing the center or the hosting space any money. So they sell the products from what they're making or do some fundraising that's garden related so that they don't have to ask for any other money. And for a lot of gardening groups, it's about maintaining attractive public spaces. So you can go and you can see where something is just, my speakers are really good, you can hear a lawnmower outside. Instead of just having grass that has to be cut every so often, putting something in there that's more attractive than a patch of grass, having something that is an attractive public space that shows that this community really cares about how things look and wants beauty, wants to attract pollinators, and wants to just contribute to the community in a really positive way. So in a gardening group, plants are the primary focus, along with making sure that the gardeners have the gardening skills that they need to maintain the plants and maintain the appearance of the garden. Lots of emphasis, of course, on plant health. So while we're here with plants, pests, and pathogens, having that knowledge base so that when something does come up, when there's a pathogen that's attacking some of the plants, or where there's a pest that people want to find a better way to take care of, that's one of the main focuses of a gardening group. And plant productivity. If we're growing food or we're growing flowers, we want to make sure that we adjust the nutrients so that the plants are doing what we need them to do, so that you're not growing a crop of zinnias that is beautiful green foliage and hardly any flowers. That's not productivity, right? So therapeutic benefits to the gardeners may occur, and they probably will. They're not the primary focus of a gardening group. The plants are the focus. So before we get into what is therapeutic horticulture, I want to make sure everybody hears gardening groups are wonderful. There is nothing bad or wrong with having a gardening group. And I hesitate to even say just a gardening group. They're amazing. They're part of communities. They are strongly and highly encouraged. I couldn't say enough good things about gardening groups. They bring people together, and they bring people together that have the same interest and passion. So gardening groups are amazing. Some gardening groups are focused on therapeutic horticulture. So that's what we're going to talk about next, and help you sort of see the differences between what a gardening group does and what a therapeutic horticulture group does. Because if we put two groups side by side, they might look exactly the same. but there's a different focus, and that's what we're going to talk about next. So therapeutic horticulture is the intentional use of plants and horticulture activities to promote physical, cognitive, emotional, and social well-being. So the focus is going to be a little bit different, as you can probably already tell from the definition. And the picture here is one of the groups that I ran at, this was in the healthcare setting, so a long-term nursing facility. And we're putting in the fall garden here. And all the pictures in this section are from the groups that I have run in the past. Goals in therapeutic horticulture groups include, but they're not limited to, and they're not for every single group. So you don't have to be hitting all of these for a therapeutic horticulture group. And I'm going to say TH going forward because therapeutic horticulture is a mouthful. But some of those goals might be things like improving physical function. So as you can see with this picture, we're doing leaf rubbings. We're using a paint roller and fresh gathered fall leaves, and we're working on fine motor skills and reach. So I've put some of the materials in the middle of this table just out of what a comfortable reach might be. So people have to lean forward a little bit and reach for the materials. And it's not to be mean, it's to help build their upper trunk strength. Coordination. It's enhancing their cognitive abilities. So we're working on memory, we're working on attention, and we're working on problem solving. We're promoting emotional well-being. We're reducing some symptoms of stress, anxiety, and depression by helping with an activity that's just in the moment, that's helping people just be in the moment and enjoy what's going on. We're maintaining social skills in a group of elders, which is what this group is. We don't necessarily need to develop new skills, but in a group of young children or a group with developmental disabilities, we may be developing those skills for the first time. But here we're maintaining social skills and promoting positive interactions and providing opportunities for a sense of accomplishment and purpose. So we took these leaf rubbing papers and we made a banner that hung in their common room for a couple of months until they switched over to holiday decorations. So everybody got to see their beautiful work, and their families came in and saw it for several months, and it really turned out beautifully. So as you might have guessed from the past couple of slides, the focus in therapeutic horticulture is on the person rather than just on the plants. The goals in a therapeutic horticulture group refer to a person's progress in that group, with the plants being used as a tool to help them achieve their goals. So in this picture, we're putting in the spring garden. So this was about a year ago, and it's at an assisted living, and these folks are accomplished gardeners. So I had nothing to teach them as far as gardening skills other than to just set out all of the equipment and plants and let them go. We started seeds back in January, and the plants grew amazingly. So I didn't have to supplement with any other starts from the nursery. Everything was grown from seed, and it looked amazing. So here's some of the key differences. So for group goals in a gardening group, we're looking at plant and garden care. We're trying to enhance our skills and learning about plants and about skills and about things that might go wrong and how we might address them. And of course, we want social connection and enjoyment. That's one of the reasons we come together as a group. In a therapeutic horticulture group, we're more focused on the therapeutic benefits for the participants rather than just the plant and garden care. That's part of it, but sometimes I'll explain in a minute how that gets accomplished. We're looking at specific individual participant goals. So if somebody has had a cardiovascular accident or a stroke, we're going to look at increasing strength on the side that's affected, maybe working with other therapists in that setting to help enhance their abilities to continue to get better in a garden setting rather than in just a clinical setting. And our focus in a therapeutic horticulture group and a TH group is on the process rather than the outcome. So when we start with a garden list in a garden group, we keep working until our time is up, but we try to finish everything on the list in our garden group. So if we need to get certain beds weeded or certain plants planted out because it's that time, We make sure that the group accomplishes those tasks. So we're very oriented to the gardening tasks. In a TH group, those tasks may not get done, and that's okay. If we're still focused on what the person's goals are, we may have to adjust during that session to meet that person's needs a little bit better. So we will have a list of garden tasks, and we can choose from them sort of like a menu. But we may not finish the garden tasks on the list because that's not the focus for that group. It's on the process. So if we're able to weed part of the bed, that's okay. If we get all of it done, that's also okay. But it's more on making sure that they're achieving what they need to achieve. And in that case, then we'll have volunteers or the TH practitioner go back in later, or maybe it'll be a different group that comes in later and continues on the garden list. And the work gets done just in a little bit different way than it would with a gardening group. So facilitation, you might be wondering, how does this work? So a gardening group can be led by members, can be led by volunteers. It could be led, if you're hosted, by another organization. It could be somebody from the organization that leads the group and makes sure that the space is used the way that the organization would like to see it used. So they may come in and say, we want all bright colored flowers here. We want it to be a food garden. So the leadership can be very different. It can be volunteer led, like Master Gardener volunteers or community volunteers. Knowledge of plants is absolutely essential in a gardening group. And it can be a group of beginners that all learn together, or it can be some moderate to expert folks leading beginners, or it can be all experts. Makes no difference as long as people are taking good care of the plants and filling in their knowledge gaps as they need to during the growing season. In a TH group, that's going to be led by trained professionals or trained volunteers. So people that have had both horticultural training, as we get in the Master Gardener program, and also some human services training as well, to be able to manage the different things that might come up in a TH group. So if you're working with people that have physical differences, psychological differences, emotional differences, we want to be able to manage the things that might come up in a group like that. So in a TH group, knowledge of plants and therapeutic techniques is essential, because we want to always be bringing the therapeutic techniques into what we're doing, and understand that we're focused on the people's goals and then bringing the techniques in using the plants. So a group structure, the groups, if we were to look at two, maybe raised bed groups side by side, they may look really similar. A gardening group can be pretty informal. It can be flexible. It can be come when you can. If you're not able to make it that day, somebody else will do that work, and you'll come back in when you're back from vacation or illness or taking care of other things that day. Gardening groups can be formal. You can say, we're only going to include these 12 people, and we'll start another group if we get more than that. But in general, they tend to be more informal. TH groups, on the other hand, have to be structured because of the goal-oriented nature of the work that we're doing. So we're gonna come up with either group or individual goals for the session and for the entirety of the group. So we can decide that it's a group that'll meet one time, and we're going to work on just this one thing, or it can be something that happens for the entire growing season and then goes indoors after the growing season and works on other things. But we're always keeping the people's goals in mind. And then for the focus of the group, we've already gone over this, but garden activities and tasks and plant knowledge are the keys for gardening groups. That's the focus. And then in the TH groups, we're looking at participant needs and therapeutic outcomes as the focus. So while the plants are very important, and we want to make sure that we always have a good stock of plants, good healthy stock of plants to work with, we're focused more on the people. But that doesn't mean we don't pay attention to the other part. In gardening groups, we're still making sure everybody is learning and having a good time. And in therapeutic horticulture groups, we're still making sure that the plants are healthy and well taken care of. So focus doesn't mean it's the only thing. Then assessment is something that doesn't come up too much in gardening groups, but maybe a little bit. is generally going to be an informal type of assessment, a verbal check-in with members. Everybody doing okay? Was this too much work for today? Is everybody happy with what we're growing? You try to get consensus and make sure that things are going well. For a therapeutic horticulture group, we're going to do intake for the participants. So it can be an interview, it can be a questionnaire to understand why would you be interested in this? um, what are your needs? And that a lot of what therapeutic horticulture focuses on at this point is making sure the participant will be safe in the group. So if they come to us with physical or cognitive or emotional differences, we need to understand what those are so that we can, first of all, make sure that the group is a good fit for what their needs are, and to make sure that we take safety precautions so that we don't accidentally or inadvertently create a situation that's not safe. So that's part of the intake and formal assessment, makes sure that it's a good fit on both sides and that we can make those adjustments if we need to. And then progress tracking is important for a TH group as well. We want to make sure that we're taking good notes and making sure that that any goals, any steps toward goals are being tracked and monitored. And if we're not going in the right direction, we can make those adjustments as well and say, we thought that putting things out of reach a little bit would help with trunk stability, but we're finding that that's not really helping. So we need to come up with something else. Or if somebody is maybe not participating in the way that we thought, we can have that conversation and make those adjustments so that that person can have a more successful outcome. And progress tracking in a TH group can be related to funding as well. So if there's an organization that is covering having a trained professional or even a trained group of volunteers come in, they can stop supporting it if they don't see the progress that they're looking for with their participants. So making sure that we're always thinking about that and keeping that in mind and keeping good records is really important. So finding the right fit, as I mentioned before, has a lot to do with who might benefit from different groups. Gardening groups are obviously for people who enjoy gardening or think they might like to try it. People wanting to learn about it and increase their skills, or try something different. If they've always grown ornamentals, they might want to try growing food, or the opposite. There are people that have grown food all their lives, maybe even as their profession, and don't want to do another food crop ever again, but are interested in ornamentals. People who are just interested in connecting with others or connecting with nature and understand how important both of those things are and want to not have to do that in isolation or in solitude. And it provides a really wonderful resource for people that don't have their own gardening spaces. So if they're living in a group situation or in a facility or in an apartment, and either they've never had a garden or they had one and they miss it terribly, it gives them the opportunity to get their hands in the soil and get dirty and have a wonderful time with plants and people. So there's just a massive benefit to gardening groups. For therapeutic horticulture groups, all of the above is absolutely true, but it also meets the needs of people that have physical, cognitive, emotional, and social needs who can really benefit from that structured therapeutic approach, but to do it in a facility or in a setting that has plants as one of the other focuses. People that have either long-term challenges or acute, which means that something that has happened that'll go away. So if somebody has broken a limb or had surgery, and they want to work on their goals with a trained facilitator in a plant and garden setting rather than in just a clinical setting. It can be a really nice way of still getting to the same endpoint, but in a setting that um, is practical, has a wonderful, outcome to it. Um, you can learn how to walk again after hip surgery in a clinic. Thousands and thousands of people do it every year, but you can learn how to do that outside in a garden setting too. So this is the sort of puts it all together. So gardening group or TH group. For a garden group, horticultural knowledge is of course required. And then we've already learned that Horticultural knowledge and human services and therapeutic training are required for therapeutic horticulture. Garden tasks and people are the two different focuses. In a garden group, it's not really necessary to evaluate participants other than their ability and their interest to working in the garden. And then in a TH group, it's essential really to evaluate the participants' needs and goals and abilities, or you wouldn't know how to plan a session. It would be really difficult to gather materials and think through how to have a session if you didn't understand what people's physical limitations were, or cognitive issues, or anything like that. It's very difficult to envision how that would work without knowing that. The end product in a gardening group is garden task completion, basically. But it can be the having the sense of accomplishment that we've all done this together. We have this beautiful ornamental garden, or we have baskets full of food, more than anybody could possibly eat in this group, and we have to give it away. That's an amazing end product. And you may have a similar product in the TH group, but it's the person or group making progress toward their goals as well. So they may have baskets full of food as well, but somebody may be able to stand for 30 minutes instead of 10 minutes like they did at the beginning of the season. That's an amazing accomplishment. So if this has sort of piqued your interest and made you think, I would like to learn a little bit more about therapeutic horticulture, we would welcome you. I think it would be amazing to have even more master gardeners in our program. We have lots of master gardeners from all over the country that take our courses. And it's been amazing to see how they've used the skills that they've learned in their communities to grow, to make gardening groups turn into therapeutic horticulture groups if they're interested in doing that. So this is a snap code. You can take a picture with your phone and it brings up the NC State Therapeutic Horticulture website, which will give you a lot more information about that. And I post events. I've done a couple this week that are free professional development events that everybody is welcome to attend. They are free, they are exciting, and they're just a lot of fun to connect with other people that are interested in the people-plant connection. And we have the Carolinas Horticultural Therapy Network is a networking group that is for people that are anybody from volunteers to students to professionals. We have everybody in the Carolinas Horticultural Therapy Network. I am honored to be the current president of that group. And it's just an amazing group of people that are doing work with all different populations in North Carolina and South Carolina. And we actually have people in Tennessee and Virginia who are part of that group too. So our courses that we've talked about, Charlotte mentioned those in the introduction. So the NC State side is me, and I've got colleagues over at the North Carolina Botanical Garden, and together we teach the 4 courses, which are now up on the screen. So there's a Snapchat or a snap code for that as well. TH1 is offered in January and August, and that's the introductory course. So that's for everybody to take to learn the history and the science behind therapeutic horticulture, a much deeper dive into who benefits from it and how it works. And we are just this week finishing up TH2 program development with an amazing group. We have 76 students. We've got, I think, 7 different countries in our group right now. It's just an amazing, wonderful group of people. Then we'll take a pause for the summer and come back in August with accommodating diverse populations. So that's when we start talking about the entire lifespan. We work with people who are tiny and just getting started to people who are over 100, and everything in between, and all different things that they're dealing with in their lives, and how therapeutic horticulture can step in and help them have wellness and just a better way. And then TH4 is our final course in the program, and that's program management. So that gets into the nuts and bolts of how to pull a program together once you've got your skills in how to plan sessions and how to assess a site, how to be safe, how to assess participants, how to help people across the lifespan. We pull it all together with program management. It's completely online, and we've had over 600 students. We're getting close to 700 now. And I'll have to check. We may be a little bit over 45 states, but we're at 19 different countries. And there are discounts available for Extension Master Gardener volunteers and Extension professionals. So we tend to fill up pretty quickly, but if you're interested, that's more information. And I invite you to keep in touch with me. That's my contact information, and that's available if you did the SNAP code. That takes you to that website as well, but you're welcome to get in touch with me if there are any questions. But you might have some questions right now, and I would love to answer them.
Is this class also educational credits with Master Gardener and continues in the Master Gardener program, or is it kind of separate?
It is separate, and Charlotte can answer more about that, but I know other states have used this as the continuing. I know it goes county by county, but it counts toward continuing education for many different Master Gardener programs.
Yeah, so you'll just need to check with your agent on how many hours or how the hours can apply to your annual continuing education requirements. So they'll be able to let you know the number of hours you can submit for completing the course.
Have you ever set one of these up at a senior center?
That course or
The
a group?
therapeutic garden like this?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they do really well at senior centers because doing a garden such as this is it's the same group that comes back week after week, so they can help with the progress of the garden and take a real interest in it.
Okay, I can see this as a lot of fun for everybody.
Yeah, I should put another slide in this presentation because that's the most important part of a gardening group or a therapeutic horticulture group, is that everybody has fun.
Amy,
That's so important.
Is there a list of the gardens throughout the state that we could possibly volunteer for? Do we need the courses to volunteer? I guess it's a good question to Kathy Keene from Catawba. Thank you
Hi.
so much.
Oh, absolutely. So, so for a gardening group, I think having gardening knowledge is more than sufficient. You're bringing a group together to do something that you already know a lot about, and have the resources, obviously, through Extension to learn more about the plants and the techniques, and you're good to go there. If you're thinking of doing a therapeutic horticulture group, my professional recommendation is to at least take the intro course to understand just some of the important principles behind doing a therapeutic group. And if you think it's something that you want to continue doing, I would have at least somebody in the group that has taken the program. And the reason I say that is because the safety information that we give is probably worth the cost of the entire program. It just, there are things to consider that are just very, very important. In terms of making sure that the facility is safe, that the tools are safe, that that the plants that you're using are safe for the participants. So,
is the funding? Are there certain spots to find the funding to apply for? Where's the best source? What's the best resource?
Funding for
to develop the garden?
Yeah, there are lots of different ways of going about that. We talk about it extensively in the program management course. But it can be anything from partnering with another organization that is interested in improving the appearance of the exterior of wherever their facility is. A lot of places, I'm thinking of the Alamance Extension office, which is a government building. It's not a beautiful building, but it has a beautiful garden around it, thanks to the master gardeners. It's a beautiful garden, and a gardener group or a therapeutic horticulture group could do something like that for a building that needs a little bit of love on the outside. So there are ways to have an organization that has some funds to exchange that for the work of a garden group or a therapeutic horticulture group. So that's one idea.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amy, this
And
is Jenny Dawson. Thank you for your presentation.
Absolutely.
I went to the website for the online course and I couldn't see where you actually register.
Let's see. So you should be able to click on the links to register, and I can drop that. I can drop that in the chat too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll stop my screen sharing too, so I can do that.
And I'll just add while you're doing that,
Yeah.
Amy, with our Master Gardener volunteers, if you're wanting to take on therapeutic horticulture as part of your Master Gardener volunteer work in your county, please work with your agent on that and involve, the extension staff in your county. And if you're going to be volunteering at a garden or location that already has an existing therapeutic horticulture program, again, check with your agent to make sure that that can be submitted for your volunteer service hours. So we really encourage everybody to be involved, but if you're going to be reporting it as part of your Master Gardener volunteer service, your agent just needs to sign off on that.
I think you said the intro course is only offered in January and August. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we offer that twice a year. We used to do an April instance of that as well, an April session, but we found that most of us are out in the garden in April and May. And our friends down in the Southern Hemisphere that take the class, that's their harvest time. So it was our lowest attendance. So we've decided to focus on January and August instead. Other questions or comments?
There were a couple of questions in the chat, but I think you've addressed them. There was the question
Good.
about funding, potential funding sources.
Mhm.
I saw that that there is some information about that posted on the website, the Therapeutic Horticulture website that you shared the QR code for as well. There's a lot
Yeah.
of resources there. Jamie Carlson says she's taken 2 of the 4 courses and they're amazing, and
Hi,
she's
Jamie.
highly recommended. Let's see. There was a question about history. When did therapeutic horticulture become a recognized field, and
Oh,
where
I
did it
love that.
start?
That's great. If we had like a full hour, I have a presentation that goes into that. I will answer your question, but it's one of my favorite things to talk about. So I'm glad you asked. It became a recognized field in the United States after World War I. However, we have records going back before written history showing that people were using gardens to relieve stress and anxiety. There are hieroglyphs that illustrate that. There are cave paintings showing acacia leaves, people resting under the shade of acacia leaves and eating together. It's amazing. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon were a gift from King Nebuchadnezzar to his wife because she was having anxiety over having lots of kids and lots of responsibilities, and he thought she needed a place to just go and relax. That's what we're doing now. It's amazing. Then you've got physic gardens that in the Middle Ages, monks put in physic gardens. So that was, they were grown to create their version of medication. Herbal medicine, we would call it now. But they would take walks, they would prescribe walks in the physic gardens for people that came to them and needed respite. So they would have these beautiful gardens that were meant to harvest the herbs, but the gardens were planted in an ornamental way so that people could go out and rest under the trees and just sort of regenerate themselves. So going forward from that, we had the sanitary health movement in the 19th century that had people going into the mental health facilities. They were at that time called, in a very non-PC way, insane asylums. People were basically incarcerated in these places, and it was very inhumane. And what they discovered is the people that could not pay their way in these places had to go and work outside in the food fields, in the crop fields, to help grow their own food. And that was how they paid their way. And the physicians who were in charge of these places found that the people who had to go outside and work had incredible symptom relief from the mental illnesses that had put them into these places, where the folks that could pay their way, that were in a better economic situation, were not getting any better. So with that evidence, they were able to finally realize that, you know, even folks that have mental health issues should probably have the benefit of going outdoors and working out in the garden. So that became the model that you see at the former Dorothea Dix Hospital in Raleigh, that has the rolling green fields and the gardens. They found that people just did better when we went outside, and we know this. So, but we've always known that. It's just become a profession that way. So in the 20th century, they started to notice, you know, that this worked with a lot of different groups, and started doing the research that we use as our body of knowledge, and it informs our profession. And therapeutic horticulture and horticultural therapy are evidence-based. So we always look to what has worked well, and we always try to add to the body of evidence when we find things that are working for the groups that we work with. I hope that answered your question.
Have you ever added bees into this garden setting as a pollination type thing with it?
I have not, and that is because we're always a little bit concerned about allergies with the groups that we're working with. So it's not something we would ever rule out completely, but in the populations that I work with that tend to be a bit medically fragile, we try not to introduce anything that might be considered as a hazard. So the pollinators that show up are there, but we've not done a bee colony.
So maybe a bee colony at a distant,
yeah,
maybe a distance away from the garden, a safe place.
Okay. Right. And we've tried, there was a group that I worked with in a summer program where there was a young man that had a known bee allergy, and we made sure he had his EpiPen with him, like literally in his pocket. Nothing bad ever happened, but we just made sure that he had that, you know, that he waved it, said, I have it. So come on in, you can work with us today.
Hey, Amy, is there anybody in the Catawba County area that we could ask to come and speak and tell us about this program? I just am so excited about it.
Yeah, well, I'm the only one. So please be in touch with me if you're interested. I'd be happy to look at that.
We would be in Hickory, so.
Yeah. Oh, I love Hickory.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. We do too.
That would be great, because I'm not that far away either. I'm in Silva.
Okay, perfect.
And this is just fascinating to me.
I'm just so excited. I can't hardly stand it.
That's wonderful. Me too. I love doing this.
And there was one more question in the chat, kind of along that vein. Is there a list of the therapeutic garden groups in North Carolina, particularly in the Greensboro area?
There is not a list. That is something that I would love to work on in my capacity, is to develop a list of those groups. They tend to come and go. I know that there's a note in the chat. The Cancer Center at Wesley Long has a healing garden that's facilitated by one of our program's alumni. So she's amazing. And she takes care of the garden in Greensboro and the one in Burlington at the Cancer Center in both of those hospitals, and is always looking for volunteers. So if that's something that you're interested in, you have that opportunity at Wesley Long to help out with her project there. And both of those gardens are amazing.
Do you have a name of the?
Yeah, her name is Allie Brown.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we are.
Question.
We'll take one more question. Yes.
Okay. I just was wondering if there's any way to incorporate like new moms or moms with little ones in the hospital, if that could be done, or something where they could, because they're there for so long.
Yeah.
If the hospital has a garden where they can just get outside and do something, because I know that they stay, especially if they have NICU babies or small children, for 12 to 14 hours a day.
Yep.
So if that's even possible. I know you talked about little children and you talked about elderly, but I didn't know about new moms because they really need postpartum support.
Yeah, I've got a couple of people in the courses right now that are working with that group. There's
Okay.
a person who's a NICU social worker, and she is working, and she's not in North Carolina, unfortunately for us, but for her hospital is in Delaware. She's working with the gardens that are at her hospital to do something like that with new moms. So that's absolutely a great population that would
And
benefit
we would
from that.
touch on that, I guess, in the course. So that's basically
Mhm.
just new support for moms. All right. Thank
Yep.
you so much
Yeah.
for your.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, Amy. You can see there's lots of
Absolutely.
appreciation and compliments coming
Oh,
in the
thank you.
chat. And I just want to say how much I appreciate how you laid out the presentation and how clear it made the differences between these groups where, all gardening is therapeutic individually, but to have
Absolutely.
intentionally therapeutic
Yeah.
gardening programs is a little different. And it brought a lot of clarity for me as well. So I really appreciate
Wonderful.
that. And
Thank you all so much.
absolutely. And we
Yeah.
will send the links that Amy mentioned to the online courses, to the Therapeutic Horticulture website. That'll all be in the resources that go out with the recording. So you'll be able to follow up on those, and you know how to get in touch with Amy. So
Yes. Thanks,
thank
everyone.
you very much. Yes. And now it is time to move on to our Be on the Lookout with Matt Bertone and Mike Munster. And I'm not 100% sure who was going to be first up.
I'm not
So,
sure we are too. Mike, what do you think? You want me to go first?
Yeah, well, I can go first. If you're going to add the one that I mentioned
Yes.
by email, then
Yep.
we can leave that at the end, and so I can go first.
Okay, go for it.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Let me, get myself started here.
And I just wanted to thank again Amy for coming and speaking with the group. We appreciate it so much.
Sorry, folks. Here we go. All right. Mention has already been made here that we are now in spring. We are now in pollen season, and it's just beautiful outside. So I will also be talking, of course, about the things that we may not think are so beautiful, but that are going to be appearing as our weather is getting warmer and moister. So on the BOLOs, the be on the lookouts for the pathogen side, let me start out with a few kind of quiz type questions. So here are 3 pictures of foliar diseases on rows. You don't have to use the chat or anything, just on your own, see if you can decide which one is black spot, which one is Cercospora leaf spot, and which one is downy mildew. No pressure. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Black spot is the one that has the black spots. It can be confused though with Cercospora leaf spot on the right there, because there are spots that are dark. You get the chlorosis, the yellowing, you get the leaf drop. I used to think of the Cercospora leaf spot as a more of a warmer weather disease, but I saw it quite early at my own house a couple of years ago. So I would now consider it something to be on the lookout for fairly early in the season. Downy mildew, you don't really have to worry about if you're not in the nursery. I think I've seen one case where it was in a home landscape, but it was because it was recently planted from the nursery. But it can be a real headache for those nursery producers who are trying to sell roses. A couple of closer shots here to show the differences. With black spot, the edge, the margin of the spot is very irregular, like this, almost feathered. And you may be able to see a few of the dark cervuli there, the fungal fruiting bodies within it. Whereas with Cercospora leaf spot, the margin is more uniform, and it has a little bit different look to the way the spores are produced there. This fungus, we talked about nomenclature last time. this has gone through several name changes. It was Cercospora rosicola, then it was Passiflora rosicola, and now it's Rosis-Farella rosicola. But we may still call it Cercospora leaf spot for convenience. Another quick question. Which of these two pictures represents an underlying insect problem? The tulip poplar leaf on the left, the flowering cherry leaf on the right, or both? Well, in this case, it's A. What we're looking at there is sooty mold, and the apparent feeding injury on the right is actually shot hole. So it's a disease common on cherries or flowering cherries and also on cherry laurels. It is not diagnostic specifically of what kind of problem it would be, but you know that you have an infection, could be fungal, could be bacterial, that the plant is just walling off and the spots drop off. Whereas on the left there, that fungal growth there, very superficial, you can just rub it off, is sooty mold growing on the honeydew that's dripping from some sucking insects farther up. And the reason, well, one of the reasons I included that in the BOLOs this time around was because we had a sample that had sooty mold. It's not shown here, but this sample of camellia that just came in. And interestingly enough, the insects that it has, Matt, correct me on this if I'm wrong, but those type of armored scales are not going to be the producers of the honeydew. So whatever was the honeydew producer that led to the sooty mold on these camellias, it was either somewhere higher up on the plant or on some overstory type tree. And actually the sooty mold is not pictured in this photograph. Another quick question. With our first warm rains, well, that's not a question. With our first warm rains in April now, we will be starting to see these teleal horns, these gelatinous orange masses coming out of galls on junipers. There are spores produced there. Okay, here comes the question. The spores produced there will infect what? Apples, junipers, oaks, pines. And for the sake of quickness here in BOLOs, we won't do the actual poll, but those who said apples are correct. So the lucky spores anyway that land on apples, crab apples, and so forth will be producing the next stage in this rust disease because it is one that requires alternation between two different kinds of hosts. You will see the galls on the junipers, the large balls there that then with the moisture, the teleal horns start to develop, see on the left, and then fully mature there on the right. This is cedar apple rust, Gymnosperangum juniperi virginiani. Last month, we talked about cedar quince rust, which doesn't produce the large galls, just a more inconspicuous sort of swelling on the stems. And the last question of the BOLOs here from me will be, what about these spores, these kind of orange dry spores now, not gelatinous, that are not on a juniper but a pine? What are those going to infect? It's going to be apples again, it's going to be junipers, it's going to be oaks, it's going to be pines. And it will, in this case, be oaks. This is another one of our rusts that is heterocyclic. It requires two plants of very different taxonomic groups to complete its life cycle. So the echinospores produced on these galls here will infect leaves, the developing leaves of oaks, just as those are starting to come out. So it's timed with the leaf emergence of the oaks. Here is a different picture of it. And this is called fusiform rust. It's on our hard pines, the species Cornartium quercum, Forma specialis. We talked about what Forma specialis were. And in this case, it's Forma specialis fusiforme. Just to go through a few quick things in the ornamental realm to be on the lookout for. Entomosporium leaf spot on Photinia and Indian hawthorn there on the left. Spot anthracnose on dogwood on the right, depending on what our weather is like as the bracts are developing. Exobasidium leaf gall on camellias. I will see if I can do a better job this year of getting out early and picking those off just as they're starting to show. That's what you're looking for in the bottom center photograph. That will break the life cycle if you can harvest those before the spores are produced on the underside. Boxwood blight, I mentioned that because we did have some samples brought to us by the Department of Agriculture recently that were out of big box stores that had boxwood blight on them. So be careful, not just in your landscapes, but in the nursery when you're buying your plants. Iris leaf spot on the left here, I didn't include, but we got an interesting sample recently with a different leaf spot on iris that is not the typical iris leaf spot, the old Heterosporium, now Cladosporium iridis. I'm adding this one. I don't think we've talked about it on the program, but probably should take some time to go into a little bit more depth on it. This is a be on the lookout for those of you in the North Carolina mountains. And it's fairly new. It was first detected in North Carolina in a nursery setting back in 2018. And then the first find in a home landscape in North Carolina was in 2022. The interesting thing about pink disease is that it's basically a tropical or subtropical disease. Matt Borden from Bartlett Tree near Charlotte figured out, though, that there is a region of our southern mountains that has what would be an eco climate, I forget the exact term, similar to a tropical rainforest. So it really, in retrospect, isn't all that surprising that it would have showed up here. Now, we've seen it in the landscape setting. We've seen it in cherry laurel. We've seen it in apple, which is the one on the right here. And we've seen it on different hollies. So there's a holly there on the left, an L.A.R. Stevens. In the nursery, it's shown up on many more hosts. So don't just look for it on cherry laurel, on hollies, and on apples, but those are the ones we've had so far in the home landscapes. And what you'll see is the sort of bark, the very outermost layer of the bark kind of peeling off, cracking first, and then peeling back, kind of looking a little bit canker-like, but it's not exactly a canker. Well, I have seen it do things that I could call a canker. But that peeling of the bark, and if the fungus is showing up, if we have signs, it could be just as small orange pustules breaking out through that bark. And you see down in the lower branch of this picture, doesn't have to necessarily be in clusters like this. It could just be individual ones pushing that outer bark up. Or at a later stage, the complete mat of fungal growth there on the branch. So this is pink disease, erythricium, no, it's on Necator, I think, salmonicolor is the pathogen, and it's something to be on the lookout for. We've so far seen it in Buncombe and Transylvania counties are the ones that have had it in the home landscape, but also in nurseries in Burke, Caldwell, Jackson. So yeah, Buncombe, Macon, and Transylvania have been the home finds, but that is something I would say possibly not the very northernmost mountain counties, but everywhere else in the mountains, keep an eye out for this one. Well, keep an eye out for it. Let us know. Certainly, we want to update our own information about this as to where its range may occur. So I mentioned apples in the previous slide. Other things to be looking out for in our fruits would be peach leaf curl there on the left, brown rot on peach, not the brown rot phase on the fruit, but as blossom and twig blight. You can see that small photograph there just to the right showing the symptoms. Fire blight on pear, which is so susceptible. That's going to be the host that will see it on first. Photograph there on the far right. Herbicide injury, that's a suspected herbicide injury photo there on the bottom center as the blueberry was leafing out and a possible herbicide exposure the previous year that had just been retained in the tissues of the plant. Cane blight and rusts on blackberry. So we had a sample come in yesterday, had rust on it on blackberry, so that's already happening. And this is also kind of a commercial for next PP&P when Matt and I will be talking about pests and pathogens on our berry plants. And don't forget about what's going on below the ground, our Phytophthora and armillary root rots, which can occur anytime of year, or at least be symptomatic any time of year. Root knot nematode, especially on boxwoods and gardenias, and other kinds of nematodes, especially again on boxwood, and also the stunt nematodes on azaleas would be something to be aware of. In turf grasses, as the soil temperatures rise, we'll likely see fairy ring symptoms appearing in this time frame, especially if we have a wet spring, according to our turf pathologist, and that can occur in any kind of turf. The cool season lawns, like tall fescue, you may see some yellow patch during this time of year, and spring dead spot symptoms will start to appear as the Bermuda grass and the zoysia grass, our warm season grasses, start to green up. The infection took place last fall, and then there was winter injury where it was infected, the turf was infected, and you get the spots in the spring that are dead, thus the name. Large patch is the bottom right there. That would be a cool season disease of warm season grasses when they are under stress from the cooler weather. And if you go to the Turf Files website, you can see more information about these and other turf diseases. If you go to our PDIC page, you will also see a little menu item there, BOLOs. If you've got a rainy day that you can't get out in the garden, check out our BOLO list for the month of April.
All right, thanks, Mike. Let's see. Get this all ready. All right, hopefully everyone can see and hear me. See my slides and hear me talk. Let's see. All right, so let me talk about some arthropod bolos. So late March to mid-April. So you can see a lot of things waking up as it gets warmer. We're all getting more active outside. The critters are too. They're very happy that it's starting to warm up. They can start their yearly duties and whatnot. So we've got some things coming out soon. So you're going to be seeing right now a lot of bees and wasps are active. I just saw a really nice, and I talked to you about this last bolos, a very nice patch of ground nesting bees active in my neighborhood in an area where there wasn't a lot of grass. They really love those situations. They're gonna be out for a little bit, but we're starting to see also the carpenter bees, the ones with the yellow faces, the males. They're gonna pick out territories, kind of hover around them. They're gonna look aggressive and everything, but they're not dangerous. They can't even sting, but they are also going to be fighting each other and then making sure they can defend territories where the females can then start to either use old burrows in wood from last year or new ones, make new ones. You'll also see a lot of paper wasps and hornets and yellow jackets starting to fly around. They're looking for sites to create their first nest, their initial nest, and as the nests get bigger through the season, they're going to have more workers helping them build. But the queens right now are waking up and doing that themselves. If you've got boxwoods, this is about the time of year you're going to want to scout and look for these little tiny orange gnat-like insects, the boxwood leaf miners. This one is using that sharp ovipositor to lay an egg inside the leaf. They lay their eggs inside the fresh growth, the very new tender growth, and they look like little tiny orange mosquitoes that swarm the boxwoods. So this is also the best time to treat with chemical applications because they're going to be exposed, the adults are going to be exposed to the leaf surface. This is the time of year too, we get some calls every once in a while about nuisance invaders. So these critters are out and about, active outdoors. They're not looking to invade your homes, but they often end up inside the homes as they're crawling around or flying around. For instance, we've got a couple calls about Hoplia monkey beetles. They're these scarab beetles, small, dark. They're about a centimeter, like less than half an inch, about a third of an inch long, the body. Their hind leg has this single claw, but we've seen reports of them swarming around people's chimneys and other places where they kind of find a mating swarm, but they'll get into homes that way, or they'll kind of come into the house in the windows or open doors or things like that. But they are harmless. They're harmless to your plants and outdoors. They will feed a little bit sometimes on flowers, but they're not going to be harmful more than anything more than a nuisance. And then you might also see some little tiny mites that crawl around. They like to feed on the new growth in the spring, especially around clovers and some other kind of low growing vegetation around homes. If that vegetation is close up to the home, these mites will infest those plants and then they'll crawl into homes. People will squish them sometimes and get a little red splotch. That doesn't mean that they're biting or feeding on anything. That's just their blood. So these are, again, nuisance invaders. They are only active very short periods of time in the cool seasons, like the spring and fall, and they go away fairly quickly. Making sure your house is well sealed and there are barriers, or you remove some vegetation from near the house, can help alleviate these symptoms of these mites coming into the house if you're having them year after year, for instance. Lots of little things are hatching. So things that overwintered as eggs are going to start to hatch. So things like mantises and baby bugs like wheel bugs, which are assassin bugs, predatory assassin bugs, and leaf-footed bugs like these that are plant feeders are going to be hatching, and you're going to start to see more baby bugs and critters out and about. Included in those baby bugs are some caterpillars. There'll be some caterpillars that are hatching after overwintering as eggs. These can include things like fall cankerworms, which are these small green inchworms, as well as tent caterpillars. So eastern tent caterpillars are going to start to become active. They're going to hatch from egg masses on rosaceous hosts like cherries and apples and things like that typically, and they're going to create these silken net-like tents in the crotches of trees. As you're preparing your soil, you're digging in your gardens, you're going to probably overturn some white grubs and some other larvae. Don't freak out just because they're in there. They're often feeding on detritus, a few plant roots, things like that. But unless there's a lot in an area, they're not going to be causing much harm to your plants and can actually be really important composters as well. And scales are becoming active. They're mating or producing crawlers at this time of year. So if you have scale insects on your plants and you have infestations all the time, it might be good to clip a little bit of the twig, put it in a bag, look for little crawlers crawling around. That means that you have the most susceptible stage to chemical applications. And if the crawlers are crawling around, they're going to be settling and becoming full-grown adults at some point. And then lots of other activity, of course. Termites are going to start to swarm. Again, if they're nearby a home, that doesn't necessarily mean they're attacking the home, but as the colonies are swarming close to your home, it may be worthwhile to call a professional out to look for colonies or damage that will be occurring in the home. And of course, lots of cockroaches, slugs, spiders, and everything more activity. You're going to start to see more things flying around, crawling around, all that stuff. So for me, it's an exciting time of year, except for the pollen. But of course, be on the lookout for these things and let us know if you see anything that you're not sure about. And finally, the big news, and be on the lookout, is our move. So it is getting very close. We're a little over a month away, but we have now set a date to move into our new location in April 28th. We are moving from Gardner Hall here in the center of main campus, and I'll show you on a map in a second, to the Varsity Research Building, Module 10, right here, and I will show you where that is in location in relation to where we are now in Centennial Campus. This has been in the works for a long time, and it's just about complete, and ready to move in. And we are not looking forward to the move, of course, the physical move and actually doing it and organizing it and making sure we don't miss anything. But we are very excited, or break anything, or anything like that, or anything that pops up. But we are very excited to be in the new space. One of the things to note is we will have a new address and campus box. We will be posting that online. We'll be keeping everybody updated. So if you're starting to send in samples around that time, please check our website for any updates and any information. There will be probably a little bit of time where we're not going to be able to handle samples. We're going to let everybody know when that is, but we're obviously not going to be able to handle samples while we're in the move, during the move. One of the other advantages, there's a parking lot right out front of the building. This is the actual unit we're going to be in. So you just basically park here, walk into the door, and you're going to be able to drop off samples. We are, the permit mechanism and the parking is to be determined at this point, but at the very least, we'll give you some information on how to contact the transportation, campus transportation to get a temporary parking permit to drop off samples. And with this, we'll also be implementing a new sample submission system, our clinic app. This is the database that we're entering. Everybody knows kind of, or you might know about entering samples into. We're going to have a new system. It's going to function very similar to our current system, just going to be a little bit prettier and have a few more bells and whistles. But that's also something that will be making sure that updates are put up and everybody knows what needs to be done when the time comes. And just to show you some of this, our current location is right here on Central Campus between Western Boulevard and Hillsborough. We are going to be moving to a new location just about a mile away or so. And this is the building. We're going to be in this unit right here. And right across the street is where Centennial Campus proper is. So a lot of people have been asking us where exactly we're moving. It's not specifically Centennial Campus, but it is right across the street, kind of in between Centennial Campus and where we're in now. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And I'm going to stop sharing.
Well, that is exciting news that you have a date, and that looks great.
Yes.
I didn't. Oh yeah,
I
go
see.
ahead.
I see one question. I said, "Will there be a new website address?" So our actual website, the Plant Disease and Insect Clinic on the Extension website, it will be the same. The app, I'm not sure where the link will be. If it'll be the same link address as the current app, but I assume it will be. If not, it'll have a redirect there. So if you're going to enter a sample, it'll have a page that'll tell you, oh, this new system is moved and have a link there. So we're actually meeting this afternoon to discuss the new system as well. Let me see some other questions. We have a larger space at your new building. Somewhat in some ways, it is fairly similar. We have our molecular lab will be now connected by a door, so we're really going to be just one place for all this stuff. We're gonna have a little bit more storage area in the molecular lab. The new lab, the main space is going to be fairly similar, a little bit more space, I think. We're gonna have a nice monitor up there in the triage area where we have our tours and stuff. So if you all come by, we're going to be able to display what's on the scope or information about the lab and all that stuff for the tours. But very pretty. We're going to have this big drop-off window instead of a half door like we have now. There's lots of little differences. You're going to have to ring in from the outside of the building, and we'll kind of answer the phone and let you all in and all that stuff. But yeah, we're still kind of going to get used to the behavior. We don't really know exactly how it's going to be, but we're all going to be in this together, and it'll be interesting. Let's see. Should I knock down wasp nests as they're being built? I'd rather not use spray. You can, so obviously this is a critter question. You can. I have a feeling the wasps will continue to build right there as they find a nice spot. I found that actually if you leave the wasp nests up from the previous years, they tend to not like to build there again. But if you don't like to see that, then that's fine. I would say the paper wasps are typically not super aggressive if it's very high up and all that stuff. They are very good predators of garden pests too. So I tend to try and keep them around if I can, if they're not, bothering me. They actually feed on caterpillars and soft-bodied insects and things like that like to eat our vegetables. So yes, that's it. You can try, but I have a feeling it'll try making a nest there. After a while, it might get tired, but you also, by knocking it down, you may risk the ire of a wasp. But it's all up to you. You can also spray them too. I know people don't like to use chemicals and everything, but it is kind of effective as well. Let's see. Keeping the PDIC web address the same is awesome. Good. Okay. All right. Well, if you have any more questions, I'll type them in the chat, the answers, but otherwise I'll let Charlotte wrap up with some plant stuff.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, so we're going to wrap up with our Plant These for Pollinators feature and a few announcements at the end. So this is a new feature we started last month, and we're really featuring the things that you can add to your landscape to attract pollinators. And again, a really important thing to remember with your planting for pollinators is to always have something in bloom during the growing season. So if it's warm enough for plants to be growing and blooming, it's warm enough for pollinators to be out, and we want to make sure we have stuff there for them to find. So this month, we're going to look at blueberries. So we often think of blueberries and pollinators from the perspective that we need we want the pollinators to pollinate the blueberries, but also pollinators are, blueberries are a really important crop for pollinators. Blueberries are native to the Southeast. In fact, there's over 23 species in the Southeastern United States, and around 22 of those occur in North Carolina. So we have a lot of blueberries that naturally grow in wild areas. Of course, they're well known for liking acidic soils, and they typically grow, most of them more in drier areas. And they range everything. There are species that are very low growing, almost ground covery, to tree-like, small trees, 10 to 20 feet tall even. So we have a lot of different species, and they provide important resources for pollinators, for birds. If you've tried to grow blueberries to get the berries yourself, the birds really relish them. There are several types of caterpillars, which are the larvae of different moths that feed on the foliage, typically in the later summer, and other wildlife depend on them too. So, they can be an important plant to add to your landscape, not just as a food crop for yourself, but as a wildlife plant and a pollinator plant. And most of the time with home gardens, we're talking about growing rabbit eye blueberries. And this is a blueberry that's had a lot of name changes right now, depending on whose reference you look at. It could be Vaccinium corymbosum or Vaccinium virgatum, and it was formerly known as Vaccinium ashii. And it is the most adaptable, though, of the blueberry types and the most commonly grown in home gardens. And it's a little different than a lot of the other blueberry varieties because the leaf of the edge is slightly serrated. You have to look at it very closely to see that, but that'll help you tell it from, say, the southern highbush or highbush type blueberries. It is winter hardy in most of North Carolina, except for the higher elevations in the mountains. So if you're above 2,500 feet, or you're in areas where there are extended periods of temperatures below 10 degrees in the winter, you should be able to grow it, except in those areas. In those areas where it is colder, you could grow high bush or southern high bush varieties of blueberry. So here are some of the pollinators that you will find visiting blueberries. Of course, honeybees. Honeybees actually aren't native to North America, that they've been brought in and they're managed for pollination services. But you will see honeybees foraging on blueberries. There is a southeastern blueberry bee, which is specialized to blueberries and some of the other native plants that bloom at this time of the year. But where we see a lot of wild blueberries growing, it wouldn't be that unusual to find southeastern blueberry bee colonies. These are bees that live in the soil, so they're not making hives, they're making individual little tunnels in the soil where they nest. There are also a variety of different bumblebees that will visit blueberry flowers. Also, carpenter bees will visit, and you can see a little cut in the side of one of those blooms, which may have been made by a carpenter bee. They may inadvertently pollinate blueberries, the carpenter bees, when they visit, but a lot of times that nectar robbing kind of skips out on the pollination process. So we get better pollination when we have bees actually visiting the flowers, as you see in these pictures, where they're going in through the opening in the flower. And there's also some different types of of native bees, which are just kind of grouped as small native bees because they're relatively small. And Bradley's Adrena is one of the more common noticed in blueberry fields. So there's actually a webpage all about the pollinators of blueberries that Hannah Barak worked on and observed in blueberry fields in North Carolina, so you can learn more about them. If you want to grow rabbit eye blueberries, either for berries for yourself, flowers for pollinators, wildlife in general, they are pretty adaptable in that they'll grow in sun or part shade, where most of our fruit crops really need full sun to be productive. Blueberries do produce better in part shade than most fruits, but you're still going to get more berries in more sun. Really important thing though is the soil test. Blueberries do require acidic soil, so you're typically looking for a pH below 5.5. In our native soils that haven't been amended, that's pretty common. Now, if you have a yard or your home is in a location that used to be farm fields where the lime's been added for many years, or even some amendments and commercial composts, that can raise the pH. So you always want to make sure that you test first before planting blueberries to see where your pH is. If it's higher, you can add sulfur to lower it. You can add amendments like ground pine bark to help lower the soil pH. Adding things like ground pine bark also creates a wonderful environment for blueberries. They love that high organic matter type soils that mimic their natural habitats growing in the woods and at the edge of the woods. And if you want to have the most berries, please plant at least 2 different varieties and choose varieties that have been developed for our region so that they bloom at the right time. So when breeders are developing fruit crops, they will, it can be very regionally specific because of the amount of winter coldness. Plants are able to track that winter coldness, and that signals them when to come out of dormancy and bloom. So for varieties that maybe were produced for the Gulf Coast, they'll want to bloom much too early for us here in North Carolina, and then you're much more likely to lose the blooms to frost. Also, if they bloom too early here, it's likely to be before our pollinators are active. So by choosing the varieties that have been developed for North Carolina to bloom at the right time, we're also timing them to our pollinator activity. And there's a great list in the Extension Gardener Handbook in the Small Fruits chapter for some specific varieties. Oh, one other thing I want to mention is, beyond being a fruit crop, I've often find that blueberries are really an attractive plant. So kind of broadening your perspective of them rather than just something for an orchard or fruit garden, and something that you could add to an ornamental planting even. They have these attractive flowers, which are just coming out now. The fruits are quite pretty in the summer. If you don't harvest them, you will get a lot of birds, it's particularly mockingbirds like them, to harvest the fruits for you. And then the fall color can be very spectacular. And it's often quite late, even Thanksgiving, before that's fully develops, and the leaves can hang on into December. There are some other blueberry species or Vaccinium species out there that you are, especially if you're hiking, you're likely to see in the wild. These are not often available from nurseries unless you go to a specialty native plant nursery. But these, that's something you may want to seek out from a native plant nursery or to attempt to grow yourself. If you have some of these plants, you can watch the berries ripen, you can collect the berries and grow them from seed that are found inside the berries, or potentially try growing them from cuttings. But I did want to mention these because they are also important pollinator resources and common throughout North Carolina. You can see the flowers look a little different, but they're still quite similar to the traditional blueberry crop type flowers we were looking at, but they range everything from sparkleberry, which is Vaccinium arboreum, and arboreum referring to tree-like. So that one is a very beautiful small tree, but it's very slow growing and tends to grow in pretty dry areas. So it needs good drainage and it's very drought tolerant. Then deerberry is a medium-sized shrub. It actually varies a lot across the state, and in the coastal plain, deerberry, which is Vaccinium staminium, tends to be a shorter growing plant, whereas in the mountains, you'll find the plants typically getting a little taller. There's several different varieties. The Vaccinium staminium variety, staminium is the most common, but there are other sub-varieties out there. And then one of my favorite is the southern dwarf blueberry, Vaccinium tenellum, which is a low growing, somewhat rhizomatous shrub. It makes a nice, dense, almost ground cover effect. It's about 2 to 3 feet tall and would be a good understory plant if you're interested in something a little different. Again, you could seek these from native plant nurseries or attempt to propagate your own. And last of all, if you already have, the other thing is looking around natural areas in your yard and adjacent to your yard to see if you already have some of these plants present. And they do bloom in the spring, so you'll see them starting to bloom over the next 4, 6, 8 weeks. And if you have them present, you could very possibly have some of these native pollinators that rely on them already there. Most of our native pollinators are ground nesting, and worldwide, 70% of bees do nest in the ground. And they are typically solitary. So even though they may sometimes nest in aggregate, so there might be a lot of nests in one area, they aren't social. They're not communicating with each other the way honeybees do in a hive. So they're individual. They're just individually living in this area because it had the right conditions. So if you see these type of bee activity this spring, just leave it alone. These are pollinators. This is really important and essential habitat. And just if you can preserve that and let the bees use that space for their habitat, they will provide really valuable pollination services in your garden and the broader landscape. A lot of times when people see this type of activity, which tends to be most common in areas where the grass or vegetation is very thin, they think that the bees are causing it, or sometimes they don't even recognize this as bee activity because it can look like ant hills. But if you watch, you'll see bees coming and going from the little openings in the mounds. But in reality, the bees aren't damaging the turf or the vegetation. They're just choosing that spot because the vegetation was already really thin. And that's usually because of soil conditions or some other underlying condition, which makes it difficult to grow grass or other vegetation there. So what better reason than leave it for the bees and let it serve as their habitat? And you can learn lots more about the many different Vaccinium species on the plant toolbox. There are 17 species highlighted in the toolbox, and you can find out about their requirements and see pictures and learn about them and many other plants. So we'll finish up with just a couple of announcements. Of course, as we already mentioned, our webinar tomorrow on building a better pollinator garden. I noticed somebody in the chat had said that the sign up was full on the EMG intranet, but you can still sign up to be on the wait list. Our Zoom license, which is the same Zoom license we're using today, is a special large meeting license we pay additional to have. In fact, the Extension Master Gardener Endowment funds that as well. It allows up to 500 people. And what we tend to find with our webinars when we post them on the EMG intranet calendar, we get lots of people to sign up, and we get about 2/3 of those people who sign up who actually are in the live webinar. So even if we've exceeded 500 registrations, there's a good chance you'll be able to get into the live webinar tomorrow, and I will send a reminder to everyone, including those on the wait list, this evening with the link, which is also there on the EMG Intranet calendar. But if for some reason you can't make it into the live webinar tomorrow, it is going to be recorded. The recording is going to be posted on the NC EMG Intranet. And
Can I ask
another
you a quick
request.
question?
Oh, yes, please go
In
ahead.
order to make space for others, my husband and I are both registered.
Oh, yeah.
But we only watch on one screen. So is there
yeah.
a way that we can let others in that spot? Or do they automatically get in?
Well, anybody who has the the Zoom link. So when you sign up on the EMG intranet, that's going to create a continuing education hours report for you. And it's not going to, because all the EMG intranet spaces are full, isn't going to limit people from getting into the Zoom meeting. So the Zoom meeting will be the first 500 people who log into the Zoom meeting. So I would say, go ahead, just keep your registrations on the EMG intranet calendar, because that'll create that hours report for both of you. But if you're going to be watching, from one computer, then that'll be another space somebody can get into the live Zoom meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right. Of course, tomorrow is Day of Giving, as we've already mentioned. And if you are able to share our posts, we've got a couple of great videos, Master Gardener volunteers recorded, posted right now, and there'll be another post tomorrow morning. So if you're able to share those, we really appreciate it to help spread the word. Also, we have a webinar planned for April 10th. And this is all about how to have a successful application for the International Master Gardener Search for Excellence Awards. So we will have Master Gardener volunteers, including Melinda Heigl and Deborah Pilkington, pictured here with their agent, Ashley Troth. They will be sharing tips from their experience as past winners of the International Master Gardener Search for Excellence Awards for any groups that are considering applying. And we really encourage every one of our Master Gardener volunteer groups to submit projects to the International Master Gardener Search for Excellence. The application deadline for that is May 1st, and the recipients will be recognized at the International Master Gardener Conference. And I thought I had that slide up next, but it is the one after our next slide. So if you're interested in learning more about that awards program, please join us on April 10th. Again, that webinar also will be recorded, and that recording will be available. A couple of save the dates. The Great Southeast Pollinator Census is coming up in August. It is each year in August, the third Friday and Saturday. So we encourage you to mark that on your calendar and plan to spend all you need is 15 minutes on one of those days observing pollinators. Or you could even plan to hold an event or hold educational events leading up to the Great Southeast Pollinator Census in your county to encourage anybody to participate, because this is a citizen science project that anyone of any age can take part in. So here's the International Master Gardener Conference, which is right after the Great Southeast Pollinator Census. It's August 25th through the 28th, and it will be virtual this year. So the Texas Master Gardener Program is hosting it, and they're really excited to be able to do that and offer it virtually to open up attendance to people who would not necessarily be able to travel to Texas to participate. Registration will open in April, and I'm hearing that the registration fee will be just under $200 for the full week's virtual event, and also that'll give you access to recordings. All right, well, we will wrap it up. Just a reminder that you can find everything PPP on the North Carolina Extension Master Gardener intranet. This is where you find the recordings and the schedule and just information about the series in general. And next month, as Mike mentioned, we have Matt and Mike as our featured speakers talking about the pests and diseases of berries. So we look forward to seeing you back here next month, April 22nd at 10 o'clock to learn more and all you need to know about pests and diseases of berries.
Charlotte,
Yes.
Mitch Smith here in Edgecombe with Barbara Smith and Lynn Brady. Can I pose one question to Mike if he's still available?
Sure. Mike, are you still there?
We have a report of an unusual number of dogwoods dying. I was just curious if that had been a report of the plant disease clinics. I was just curious if he had a response to that.
I think he answered in the chat. Let me see. I think, did you put that question in the chat?
Yes, sir, I did.
I think he said, Mitch, we often get dying dogwoods submitted and I see them dying on campus, but it's often hard to say what the original cause is or was. That's definitely something that if you want to submit some samples, we'd be happy to take a look at it. Maybe documenting some of the different sites or the area with some photos, getting some clear photos of the plants themselves. Also, at this time of year, it might be best to see them leafing out. So waiting to see if they leaf out all right and everything is always a good thing to do at this time of year, just to get an overall feel about how much dieback and whatnot's happening. And then we can definitely suggest any samples that might be good to be submitted.
10-4. Thank you. And as always, a wonderful presentation today. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, thanks for attending. And yeah, no worries. We'll be happy to help you out.
Yeah, so I did notice one question in the chat as well related to the blueberries about having some very mature blueberry bushes that weren't producing very well anymore. And is there anything they could do to improve production? So pruning is the important thing with blueberry bushes to keep production going. And you can do some pretty hard pruning on older bushes to rejuvenate them. In the follow-up resources I'll send up, there'll be some fact sheets and information that'll guide you through some of the pruning processes to keep your blueberries productive. All right, with that, we will wrap it up. And thank you everybody for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you again next month. hopefully by then the peak of the pollen will be over and spring will be here in full force. It'll be planting season for sure. So hope everybody has a great time between now and then, and we'll see you in April.
Yeah, thanks, Charlotte, for helping organizing it as always.
Absolutely.
All right, everyone. Enjoy the nicer weather.
Thank y'all.
All right.
Charlotte, this is Melinda.
All right. Let me just stop the recording.
Thank you.
And then I'm happy to hang out if there are any questions.
I didn't, just a quick one.